The ninth Faversham Fringe, which has the reputation of being the friendliest fringe, kicked off on the 3rd of October and will run until the 26th. During this time, Faversham will have the opportunity to see some extraordinary shows performed by very talented people, and I'm taking advantage of this to catch up with some of them. Today I'm talking to Councillor Robert Newman, who, with others, from 2:30 on Sunday the 19th of October in the Guildhall, will be sharing his knowledge and opinions of world-famous science fiction author Iain Banks. Hi, Robert. How are you today?
Hi, yeah, I'm good. Can I correct you already? When he wrote science fiction, he wrote it as Iain M Banks. When he wrote literature, he wrote it as Iain Banks. And according to the Times, there was definite, they famously once said he writes literature and science fiction. So the science fiction is not literature, apparently.
Well, I'm not a great fan of science fiction, so I would agree with the Times.
Right, right.
So, what inspired you and your colleagues to talk about Iain Banks?
Well, firstly, I enjoy his books. I read his first published book, The Wasp Factory, way back in the early 80s, quite soon after it was first published. Only after there was a big buzz about it. I can't claim to have been, one of the super early fans like people always like to do. But once there was a big buzz and it was a top seller, I read that. Then I met him a number of times through the 80s. Funnily enough, pretty much every time I met him, he lived in Faversham, but I didn't know he lived in Faversham, and I didn't meet him in Faversham. I met him in Brighton, in Nottingham, various places. Hung out with him, occasionally a bit. Well, not a friend, but I was there and he was there. I had no idea he lived in Faversham. He was kept quite quiet about that. Everyone assumed he either lived in Scotland or London. He wrote early books were about living in Scotland, and then his later books are about being a Scotsman living in London. But actually, he was living in Faversham.
Yeah, I gather he actually wrote The Wasp Factory whilst he was living in Faversham.
I think that's wrong. I think he used the money from the Wasp Factory to outright buy the house in Faversham. Then he wrote the next few in. I can't be. You see now, David Haddock, who will be doing the talk at 2:30 and then talk after that as well, or helping out with participating in both. He's an absolute expert, and he will tell you exactly which bits. There'll be some book that he wrote part of in Faversham and then wrote part of in Glasgow, and he can tell you exactly, the precise details of all that sort of thing. My knowledge is far more vague than that. So come along to the talk and you really get, it's all about that sort of stuff. Places in Kent and the area that are incorporated into his books, all of that will be discussed, as well as stories, anecdotes. I mean, I think we've got his agent who lives down in Folkestone will be coming along, I believe, and we'll be telling stories of getting drunk in various pubs in Faversham, things like that. Certainly, I was involved in drinking with him in Nottingham on one occasion, and I can't tell too much of this anecdote because it is my only funny Iain Banks anecdote, but he did try to hit me. He got very angry and took a swing at me, and that's as much as I'm saying. If you want to know the full story, you're going to have to turn up on Sunday the 19th of October at the Guildhall from 2:30.
Right, okay. So how do you hope your audience is going to respond to the talks if you're going to tell anecdotes like that?
I hope they're not going to demand their money back and leave. Beyond that, I mean, we did a couple of years ago at the Faversham, what's it called? The book one.
The Literary Festival.
Yes, that's the one. Literary Festival. We did a talk. Some of the David Haddock and someone else who won't be around this time did a talk at that a couple of years ago, and it went down so well that I thought we we could just basically do exactly the same thing again, and I'm sure it'd been popular. But the literary festival's so popular, has so much stuff. They didn't feel a need to do the same one over and over again. So we're going to do a sort of expanded over more than one program item version as part of the Fringe this time. So I think I think it go down fine. I think people in Fab, there's a lot of people who read his book. I certainly a couple of years ago, a lot of people saying, "Wow, I've read all his books. I had no idea he'd ever lived in Faversham," and that happens so often, doesn't it?
Yes.
People who have no idea Marlon Brando used to live in Faversham. I mean, everyone knows that Bob Geldof was, but somehow anyone else, people are like, "Really? What? I didn't know that."
No, well, I think there's a place for people in Faversham to live under the blanket and not be noticed. And I think that's one of the beauties of living in Faversham, to be honest. So, from your personal point of view, I'm sure you've got an anecdote for this. Appearing in front of an audience, whatever you are doing, can be pretty scary.
Yep.
Do you have a memorably nerve-wracking moment you'd like to share?
No. Not that I'd like to share. No.
Well, I'm going to force you to share one.
Oh, that's a horrible question. I wasn't really. I haven't thought about. No, I've not. Oh.
No, okay, all right. We'll move on. You don't find falling scary, and you've never had a nerve-wracking moment.
No, I've had absolutely horrific, disastrous experiences, and I try to wipe them from my brain, and I certainly don't want to share them.
Okay, all right. It's not a therapy session, Robert. We'll move on.
Oh, what a disaster! Anyway, yeah.
Tell me about your favourite Iain M Banks book and why people should read it.
Oh, right. Well, yeah. I mean, if you like science fiction, then pretty much any of his books. The first properly science fiction one is Consider Fleabus. It's kind of there was the 1950s American science fiction was always about there was always a sort of galactic empire of humans, very military, very the Americans rule the galaxy kind of thing, and they're usually fighting some evil aliens of some sort. Iain Banks wrote Consider Fleabus. He's kind of similar, but he turned everything upside down. The main character, the protagonist, who has his own little spaceship and does what he likes and bends the rules and breaks the rules and tries to sort of like somewhat Han Solo in Star Wars, like trying to skirt around the edges of the galactic empire. He is definitely the villain. He's not the good guy, He's breaking the law. He's horrible. You got this lovely utopian state where everyone's equal, and this guy's robbing and stealing and smuggling, and so he subverts everything. It's quite clever, quite interesting. I've kind of spoilt that for you now, but it can take you a while to realise that's what's going on.
Would you say that Banks is more Asimov or more Star Trek?
Woo! He did not like Star Trek. He grew up on things like Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, but he's a Glaswegian socialist, and he doesn't like the he tends to have. He'll have very positive women characters, gay characters. He definitely doesn't really quite write in the same style as people like Asimov's very. Asimov never tried writing women because he knew he couldn't. Some of the others, like Robert Heinlein, used to try and write women really badly. almost every Asimov science fiction novel ever starts with two historians or two scientists setting out the background. You know, they'll go, as you know, 100 years ago, we invented faster than light travel. And then the other one says, yes. And as you know, we now have an empire of 78 planets scattered across. And they just have this really ridiculous conversation so that you understand the background as the novel begins. Iain Banks is a, you know, he's an author who won't do that. He'll throw you straight in, work it out for yourself, or go away.
Okay, all right. You're not. I see. I'm not a science fiction fan, but I'm an Asimov fan. But that's interesting, Robert. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then
Yep.
we must leave it there, I'm afraid.
No,
What
that's
is the
fine.
one thing you hope your fringe audience will take away from you and your friends, who are all Iain Banks fans and knowledgeable people?
Well, I'm not really gonna. I've only got my one anecdote, so I'm certainly not going to be doing much of the talking. But yeah, I mean, I hope people will learn a lot about Iain Banks, and will go away and read his books again, or possibly even go out and buy them. And I hope they'll learn a bit about Faversham as well, and how much Iain Banks loved Faversham.
Right, brilliant. Well, I'm going to thank you and leave it there. So, if you go to a fringe show because you like science fiction, you're interested in the personalities that may have lived in Faversham, then get your tickets for 2:30 on Sunday the 19th of October in the Guildhall, online at favershamfringe.co.uk/what's-on, and ensure you and your friends catch Robert and his team take on Iain Banks. You may even discover a book you really should read. Thanks, Robert, for talking to Radio Faversham and the people of Faversham today.
Thank you.